Last executive director desk, we were on location out in front of the islands or on the beach, right? Because I was talking about Haiti and some
Oh,
of my
right.
experiences in Haiti, and I think they're very similar in that I felt embraced and loved by the Haitian community, even though I it would be unnecessary, right? Or I wouldn't expect it, but still in touch with some of those people, right? And the
Right.
same thing where like my opportunity to be able to flush my toilet 5 times, like you said, a day, to have running water, they don't have sewage, right? They don't have any sewage lines. And so when you look at that and you experience that and you live in that, there's all these, yeah, a lot of emotions, a lot of thoughts, a lot of determining who am I, what am I, why, the whys, why do these
Right.
folks live the way they do,
Mhm.
why do we have what we have, and which is oftentimes what we deal with here at Back Bay. I mean, you know, all the staff here, we work with people who are homeless or living in poverty, or need their gas bill paid or their electric bill, or need a month's of rent paid, and then we go out and we do rehabs. And right now we have a
Right.
rehab that's a block and a half from here,
Oh, wow.
where the floor was out of the house, right?
Okay.
And we got volunteers here from Florida and from Iowa, replacing a floor. And I look at that and I say, you know, as a child, I didn't know what was going on. I knew we were living in poverty up in northern Mississippi, but I didn't realize what that was, right? Because I was a kid. But now as an adult, and I experience that and I interact with that, and kind of most of my life has been spent with people who are disregarded. I think that's a better term than probably marginalized, that we disregard. And I've learned, my values have been rearranged and changed by living and working with people who have been disregarded in Haiti, in Mexico, in third world places in this country, you know, because we have that too. It's just more hidden or more ignored, or we don't want to see it.
We don't.
And so
It's uncomfortable to see it.
it's
Because
very
to see it,
uncomfortable, yeah.
and this is where it speaks into the heart. We can get into scripture. We can come into a place of looking at it from a brass tacks therapeutic reality, from a cognitive behavioral approach in terms of applications, but getting to places of the condition of what we'll let into our hearts, so that our minds can adjust, so that we have a spirit of life about us, is difficult, because we have to have a willingness and an openness to the other. It's implicit. And we've been taught that implicit connection is to overrun, rule over, lord over, possess, vanquish, conquest, conquistadors.
Yeah.
I mean, and that hits us all the way down in the immediacy of what we're doing in the here and now, right now, right? And so it's like to see the other, right? Because there's people outside that are waiting. They need help. And a lot of them need help in the immediacy of some kind of reality, like biopsychosocial, spiritual. That's the 4 essential components of living, our essences. And I mean, they're hurting in one place or all places, but what they're presenting here too is because of an imminent reality in at least one of these sectors of their life, that they can't go on, and they may not know the extent or the fullness of help that they need, but they know that they're reaching out and hoping at some level that they're going to be met and loved. And I think that's going to look a lot of different ways, because it's got to.
Well, and I was thinking about that as we're sitting here, actually. It's not a question I asked or a statement I was going to make, but I think about the guests here at the Micah Day Center who are unsheltered. And you mentioned these are kind of our basic human needs, right? For love and compassion and mercy and a roof over our heads and clean water and security. And so what it would be like to sit across from one of those persons in a therapeutic relationship, right? Because the majority of your therapy is probably with folks that have a home, that are sheltered, you know, that have jobs, and they're having difficulties and challenges, you know, with what would be considered their normal life. What would it be like to sit across from somebody who lives on the streets? And I would agree. I think, gosh, was that you today or somebody else? That was you, who said, how you've seen love and compassion from people living in the woods, right? Or from people who are unsheltered or homeless.
Absolutely.
And how that changes who we are. As I see that changes the staff that work here and the work they do here, because I think that's what it's about. It's about seeing, acknowledging, embracing the other and seeing that other within us. Correct? Because we're all a bit of an anomaly to each other, right?
Sure.
We know each other, but we'll get to know each other more over the years. And there'll probably be things that we value and appreciate about each other, and some things we're like, wow, that's a little off there, buddy, right? And the same, I'm sure, with Kevin, because I've worked with Kevin for 7 months here behind the camera. He probably thinks I'm a bit of a wackadoo at times, right? But we learn about each other, and we engage with each other, and we don't, and we stay with each other, right? That's a part of, and I'm assuming when you're doing marriage therapy, that's probably a lot of what you're doing, is helping people try to stay with each other, And I guess one question I have for you, as we try to close this up, because Kevin looked at his watch and he's like,
okay.
oh, too long.
Okay.
But what are some of the dynamics of people you think that are homeless or unsheltered or in poverty? How does that affect their psyche, their mental health, especially as you saw probably in Cuba? Even though you saw hope, and I actually lent Paul a book, gave him a book, not on it, but gave him a book written by a Cuban author who's a theologian, De La Torre, who is marginally a friend of mine. I know him on kind of a, what would you say, a professional level. But he talks about, he has this book about hope, and he actually says hope for us, like for you and I as white males, as educated white males, we live in hope. We talk about hope, and we have hope. And he said, but honestly, he says our theme should be really that in many ways the world is hopeless. That the world is not moving to regeneration, but necessarily to kind of extinction, right? And it's a very interesting perspective he has about hope, that hope is for the privileged, but not always for those who don't have privilege, or those who are discarded or marginalized, which in my experience also, though, I found more hope among the people in Haiti. I found more hope among the people living in the colonies on kind of the dirt, dusty hills of Mexico.
Okay, yeah.
And I find a lot of hope even in our individuals living unsheltered here at the Micah Day Center.
Sure,
absolutely. And they have a different, and maybe it's just a different hope. So that was a sidebar. So
that's interesting.
For folks that are living in poverty, or people that are kind of just scraping by, how do you see that affects their mental and emotional stability?
I think it affects people's mental health is affected in a lot of different ways. From living out, I'm tripping up on my words, because, and sometimes homelessness or living without, a shelter, in terms of a house, it is a choice for some people.
Yes.
Some people, it's a place where their mental distress, mental disorder that needs absolute medication and stuff has been misarranged and needs attention, but accessibility to care is limited or doesn't exist. Let's be real. There's a place where, for children growing up on the streets or without a home or inconsistent homes, and let's talk about the damage in terms of the reality of it's, for some kids it actually may be better for them to not have the situation that they're experiencing at home. So so what are they doing to survive? Then there's a situation where the reality is, well, this person is on the streets because he's or she's had an addiction to methamphetamines or opioids or whatever it might be since she was 15 and her parents are fed up with her, or someone might be just broke or gambled it away. So, and I don't mean to be so like blah, 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 but it becomes down to this contextual place that as people come into the place, yes, the world is in so many ways hopeless, but that is a choice of a perceptual view.
Yeah.
And there has been a place of misplaced white privilege idea of hope, and what the Christian church has said our hope is supposed to be, which is a bald-faced lie. And we have hurt people and we continue to hurt people, and we're not the only people on the planet that do this.
Yeah.
But we are in a unique position as the three white men sitting in this room saying, we're not, our life's not based in that. We have hope because we see essential beauty in the world that comes from a place of transcendental hope that this is not all. And we don't know what the end of this is. Yes, the end is coming. Why has it got to be nihilistic?
Yeah.
Why do we have to believe a culture that tells us we're not allowed to hope?
Yeah.
We have to fear as and that's the government and the culture that tells us and puts people into hopeless situations constantly. Now there is pain in this in the existential reality of joy and sorrow and one of, if we're going to believe the truth of Christ on the cross, it's one of the most horrifically beautiful things that we say we love. We have to reconcile that. In a lot of ways, we chose knowledge over understanding. We show our ignorance.
Yeah.
Right there, and so working with, in my mind, we're all in a place of desperation. The person high on the hog living up on the hill, and the person down right out outside that window that's probably camped out behind that trailer.
Yeah.
We are called to be a sandbar in the middle of that. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
How do we do that, and what are we doing? Because there are people right out there.
Mm-hmm.
And they're asking us for hope. They're asking us for help, at least. We better be able to accommodate that in ourselves and accept that we are not supposed to make them look like us. We need to meet them in their space.
Where they're at, exactly. Yeah.
And
yeah.
something about doing that, in my experience, opens places of transformation, change, and reality, and management, and awareness, and security in people's lives. And it's a hard road to hoe. And that's what y'all are doing, it seems in my mind. I mean, that's what my impression of is here.
Right.
Which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Well, it is about, I think, my personal opinion, this is a bit different than probably De La Torre, is that your hope to me, that Kevin's hope to me, right? When we have these kind of conversations, or when somebody gets a sack of groceries at our client choice pantry, or they get a shower next door and a new set of clothing, right? They get their clothing washed, and they're unsheltered, and there's kindness and love shown toward them. We find hope in other people. We find hope in each other. We find hope in relationships, and hope in kind of the kindness and goodness of the other, right? Because that to me is what the world is about, and I completely agree with you. Of course, around, like you said, people that are living in mansions and high on the hog. Did you say high on the hog?
Yeah, I said high on the hog. I can't believe I did.
When they're high on the hog, there can be as much desperation there. In fact, there is. That's what I've experienced. Not myself, because I've never lived too high on the hog.
No.
But I've always been in the not-for-profit world. But there's desperation in the hearts and the souls of people, because I think it is that constant desire to know ourselves, to know who we are, what we are, and what difference do we make in our world, in our small or our big world, whatever that may be, right?
Absolutely.
So I thank you for being with us today. I'm hoping that you all found some hope in the conversation.
I can get a little bit animated too, so.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
A little bit passionate.
I think that's good, because this shows passion, right? And it shows that our lives and our hearts and our minds are in it. So, yeah. So I'm sure we'll be having some further conversations with Paul. I know I do. Every time I sit down with him, I'm challenged beyond where I'm at. So for me, that always feels really important, right? And so thanks for being on the journey with us today. Continue to watch these and support Back Bay Mission in whatever way you can, but especially we want your prayers and your energy. So thank you, Paul.
Absolutely.
And
thank you.
Well, thank you for taking the time to do this on a Monday morning. Yeah.
Oh yeah, looking forward to it.
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So.